Too often, I'll say barefaced lies. I'll say barefaced lies. I'll say barefaced lies. Again, barefaced lies. Too often, I'll say barefaced lies. I'll say barefaced lies. I'll say barefaced lies. Again.
That's right, yeah, we got an agenda. And it's your money we're gonna spend, yeah. Do you wonder where it's all gonna end, yeah? Do you think we ever wanna defend, yeah? Cause when the truth becomes so easy to disguise, you get shooting cold, overgrown, postal phone, barefaced lies.
Barefaced lies. Barefaced lies.
Hey Sham, you got a party, you got that little party going on there. Keep to the left, you can't think right, so everything you do goes wrong, yeah. Incompetence just leads to disaster. Corruption brings it on even faster. What you say?
That's right, yeah, we got an agenda. And it's your money we're gonna spend, yeah. Do you wonder where it's all gonna end, yeah? Do you think we ever wanna defend, yeah? Cause when the truth becomes so easy to disguise, you get shooting cold, overgrown, postal phone, barefaced. That's right, yeah, we got an agenda. And it's your money we're gonna spend, yeah. Do you wonder where it's all gonna end, yeah? Do you think we ever wanna defend, yeah? Cause when the truth becomes so easy to disguise, you get shooting cold, overgrown, postal phone, barefaced lies.
Barefaced lies. Barefaced lies.
Comrades, you always told us you'd build us all a new Jerusalem, yeah. You talk the talk, but when you walk, you only leave a crooked line there. And you don't see the trouble that's brewing if all you do is just what you're doing.
That's right, yeah, we got an agenda. And it's your money we're gonna spend, yeah. Do you wonder where it's all gonna end, yeah? Do you think we ever wanna defend, yeah? Cause when the truth becomes so easy to disguise, you get shooting cold, overgrown, postal phone, barefaced lies.
Is this where you wanna be? Debt and childhood poverty. Will somebody set us free from this corrupt kleptocracy? Oh yeah.
Barefaced lies.
That's right, yeah, we got an agenda. And it's your money we're gonna spend, yeah. Do you wonder where it's all gonna end, yeah? Do you think we ever wanna defend, yeah? Cause when the truth becomes so easy to disguise, you get shooting cold, overgrown, postal phone, barefaced. That's right, yeah, we got an agenda. And it's your money we're gonna spend, yeah. Do you wonder where it's all gonna end, yeah? Do you think we ever wanna defend, yeah? Cause when the truth becomes so easy to disguise, you get shooting cold, overgrown, postal phone, barefaced. That's right, yeah, we got an agenda. And it's your money we're gonna spend, yeah. Do you wonder where it's all gonna end, yeah? Do you think we ever wanna defend, yeah? Cause when the truth becomes so easy to disguise, you get shooting cold, overgrown, postal phone, barefaced. That's right, yeah, we got an agenda. And it's your money we're gonna spend, yeah. Do you wonder where it's all gonna end, yeah? Do you think we ever wanna defend, yeah? Cause when the truth becomes so easy to disguise.
Do not fear them. Do not fear any of them. On the 20th of November 2003, James Ignatius O'Rourke McMahon was elected councillor for the Failsworth East Ward of Oldham. Deeply ambitious, he ruthlessly rose to power, and by 2011 he was already leader of the council. In 2015, exploiting a Labour Party loophole, he became MP for Oldham West and Royton. If only the people of the town knew then what they now know. Do not fear them. Do not fear any of them.
A very, very good evening, Sunday the 16th of March 2025. My name is Raj Amir. This is one of those Recusant 9 transmissions. Very, very good evening to all of you. There's over 100 of you already this evening. So what I always ask at the beginning, and I keep having to do this because it does make a difference. Please do like the post, like the transmission at the very least. If you're here, at the very least, click like. If you can, share, do comment. I turn off all the adverts whilst this is on. YouTube sent me an email today letting me know that I could earn up to 33% more if I turned on adverts during my live broadcasts. I don't turn them on whilst we're on live for a reason, which is so we can interact in real time. So please do comment, do like, do share. And add your thoughts, because I do, whilst I have an idea in my head as to what I'm going to talk about over the evening, I do react and respond as well. And thank you very, very much if you are supporting me via PayPal or buying me a coffee using the links at the top, they're pinned at the top. So if you find value in this, you can either support me this way, you can buy me a super chat, or my preference is for those of you, and it's for the vast majority of you who don't support me, please consider taking out a subscription to Redwall and Rebel. It's free. You can subscribe for free, or you can pay me a couple of pounds. You get the same. So if you subscribe for free, then that's fair enough. It means you can't afford to support me. But I take value in the numbers on the newsletter. It makes a difference to me. So please do support the website redwallandrebel.co.uk. And if you can, this is how I earn my income. If you can, please support me. It's 75 pence a week, the equivalent of £3 a month for those people who do support me this way. Most of them just sign up for the year for about £30 or so. So please, if you find value in my work, support me. We're 3 off, when I last checked, 3 off getting to 100 paid supporters for this month. So I'd lost the best part of 300. And it looks like after I put a call out, just under 100, 3 off 100 so far. So that would be amazing if we could get this during this evening's broadcast. Thank you. And it does, JJ Smith, thank you very, very much. I know it's £2, and people say, what's £2? Someone gave me £1 last week. To me, it makes a massive difference because it shows people take value in it. Let's get on with this evening's, thank you, Ray. Let's get on with this evening's transmission. It's of value, I think. This is Tom Crowther KC. It has been announced on Oldham Council's own webpage that he is going to chair the local Oldham Council sexual exploitation inquiry. This is despite us forcing every councillor to reject this toothless inquiry. The establishment are pushing ahead with it. We're still waiting, or the council is still waiting to hear back from the Home Office. Of course, it won't be a good response because the letter that went to the Home Office wasn't even a letter. It was just a joke, wasn't it? The Chief Executive, who's now been formally appointed Chief Executive, Shelley Kipling, simply copied and pasted the motion and sent it. It was a disgrace, but as is part of the course now in Oldham, The only time the opposition councillors speak out is if I launch a campaign and lobby, and I'm just fed up of doing it. I'll be honest with you, I'm completely fed up of dragging councillors who are meant to be opposition councillors to speak out on behalf of the town, because they don't. With the exception of one or two, the vast majority don't. And when they do open their mouths, it's because we forced them to. So it's a growing challenge for me. But let's read what they've had to say. One of the most respected figures in the field of effectively tackling child sex exploitation has agreed to chair an independent local inquiry in Oldham. So first and foremost, that's a complete and utter lie. That is a complete and utter lie, because Tom Crowther has done nothing to effectively tackle child sexual exploitation. And if he's respected by the establishment that covered up the very child sexual exploitation that led to 100,000 conservative estimates, 100,000 working class white girls being groomed and gang raped. And if he's respected, I'd say, what is he exactly respected for? Is he respected for being a partner in the cover-up? I would argue that. Tom Crowther KC, who was chair of the widely praised, well, who widely praised it? Independent inquiry into CSE in Telford, will now bring his expertise to Oldham after being appointed to head up the borough's inquiry. Well, who appointed him? Who appointed him? Tom said, I'm very pleased to have been asked to chair an independent inquiry into CSE for Oldham Council. Well, how can it be an independent inquiry? Who appointed you, Mr. Crowther? Now, we know the government appointed you to oversee the 5 local inquiries, but who actually appointed you to oversee the one in Oldham? I know from my work in Telford that an inquiry of, I think it should say this sort, can bring the answers the community deserves about what we have gone wrong, what has gone wrong in the past, and can ensure best practices in place for the future. So he's here to facilitate the cover-up. What has gone wrong in the past deserves answers to, and how we can ensure best practice in place for the future. What that is an omission of, it is still happening now. And that's what Arud Shah, the leader of the Oldham Council, said so herself not that long ago. It is still happening today. So he's saying is lessons of the past. You can see it, you can feel it, lessons of the past. But this inquiry begins with the confidence of Oldham CSE survivors is hugely important, and I am determined that they and the community as a whole will be involved as the terms of reference and working details, including mechanisms for obtaining all relevant evidence, are developed. Well, first and foremost, he does not have the confidence of Oldham CSE survivors, because Oldham CSE survivors have been in direct contact with me. So it'd be interesting to see how many Oldham CSE survivors Tom Crowther or Oldham Council have talked to secure this so-called confidence. Thanks, Callum. An Oldham Council spokesperson added, Tom is hugely respected by survivors, given the excellent work he did in Telford, and his appointment reflects the views of the survivors. We believe this is an important step in securing justice for our survivors and Oldham residents more generally. So the council is now suddenly on our side, wanting to secure justice. This is the same council that claimed barefaced lies is suddenly on our side and claiming they want justice for survivors. You can believe them if you want. We've said from the outset that we will put survivors at the heart of any work we do around child sexual exploitation. Having repeatedly let down by public bodies over the years, that is the least they expect and deserve. So they're removing themselves from that and saying, okay, we put in the survivors first. It's all talk, Julie. Agreed. It's all nonsense. It's all nonsense. Bet Tom and Kira are pals. It wouldn't surprise me, mate. Oldham Council hopes the news of Tom's appointment gives real confidence that everyone at the council is determined to ensure that survivors' voices are heard. They are manipulating the survivors. They are exploiting the survivors. It's what I've said from the outset, because these survivors on the whole are damaged individuals who also do not have the whereabout and the expertise to understand how these inquiries work, the mechanisms, the skill set to dissect information. You are being used. I've said this at the beginning and I'll keep saying this. Those survivors who are engaged with Tom Crowther are simply being used. Nothing more than establishment stooges, which they were in other parts of the country where similar processes took place. Being pulled into a meeting, being treated like you're suddenly important is no different in my viewpoint than how the grooming gang members groomed you. This is no different in my point of view. In the same way you were wooed with cigarettes and alcohol as children, you are now being exploited by public sector officials who are calling you up, inviting you into meetings and so on, making you feel important. And if that is uncomfortable or if you feel upset by that, I don't care. Because I'm not here to be your friend or anyone else's friend. I'm here to see a job done, completed, which is to hold those to account, to get to the bottom of this and make sure this never happens again. And a toothless local inquiry with no statutory powers is absolutely no chance, has absolutely no chance of getting to the truth. So no, Oldham Council, it does not give me real confidence, and if I have anything to do with it, I'll make sure that thousands, tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of people, if not millions across this country and beyond, also see this for exactly what it is, an establishment stitch-up, another attempt at a whitewash. Am I being clear on my position? The setting up of this inquiry and the appointments of its chair have been discussed with the survivors and those who support them. Again, which survivors? How many survivors? How? It's nonsense. They have expressed relief that an inquiry has been put in place and reassurance that Tom has agreed to take this central role. Well, who has expressed relief? Last July, Oldham councillors passed a motion to ask the Home Office to review the handling of child abuse and exploitation cases in Oldham. This January, the Home Secretary ordered a national audit of the handling of child sexual exploitation by public bodies and gave a commitment to support local independent inquiries. The leadership of Oldham Council restated its commitment to such an inquiry. Last month, following a vote by councillors, Oldham Council requested the Home Office to establish its own inquiry on national CSE issues. Let's just say they're avoiding telling the truth. Last month, following a vote by councillors, what actually happened was a rejection of this inquiry, toothless inquiry, and a call for a statutory inquiry with all the necessary powers. I know I'm not on drugs. I don't drink alcohol. My mind is very, very focused. I did not imagine what took place last month at that extraordinary council meeting. So this sort of statement from Oldham Council should not surprise anyone, particularly when the now Chief Executive, Shelley Kipling, was head of comms in the council, and that's the same communications department that she had a role in that was responsible for covering up the grooming and gang rape of children. So that is what Tom Crowther has happened. I have, and I will publish this, so please, by all means, use it, forward it, pass it off as your own, put your own signature at the bottom. This is my letter to Tom Crowther. Mr. Crowther, let us be absolutely clear. Your appointment to lead Oldham child sexual exploitation inquiry with a paltry £1 million budget and no statutory powers is nothing but a calculated continuation of the very cover-up we have fought against for years. The transparent attempt to replicate your Telford model, widely recognised as an exercise in damage control rather than justice, reveals the government's true intention: to silence our movement while protecting those responsible for the cover-up of the gang rape of children. We have exposed Oldham's child sexual exploitation scandal to global attention through relentless campaigning that has toppled successive council leaders and decimated Labour's control of our town. We have forced every councillor to defy the government and vote for statutory powers, yet here you stand preparing to oversee what amounts to a whitewash by design. Your Telford inquiry exemplifies how to create the appearance of accountability while delivering none. It protected perpetrators through anonymity, shielded officials who enabled abuse, and buried racially uncomfortable truths beneath bureaucratic language. This deliberate obscuring of justice may have succeeded in Telford, but it will not succeed here. The proposed structure for Oldham's inquiry is transparently engineered to fail. How can you possibly deliver a thorough investigation with £1 million when Telford cost many millions more? I think it was 7 million it cost. The answer is obvious. You cannot and are not meant to. This budget constraint alone exposes the inquiry as a cynical performance rather than a genuine pursuit of truth. Your acceptance of these conditions makes you complicit in this cover-up. Am I making myself clear? Your acceptance of these conditions makes you complicit in this cover-up. By agreeing to lead an inquiry without statutory powers to compel testimony under oath, without the mandate to name both perpetrators and those who protected them, and without explicit recognition of the racially motivated nature of these crimes, you become not an instrument of justice, but a tool of continued institutional evasion. We demand to know: will you name the perpetrators who committed these crimes and the officials who orchestrated their cover-up? Will you expose how senior politicians in Oldham maintained close friendships and associations with the ringleaders of the rape gangs? Will you reveal how senior politicians in Oldham maintained, will you reveal how race was weaponized as a political shield and children were effectively exchanged for electoral support? Will you investigate, I don't name names according to some, but here we go. Will you investigate how Andy Burnham's police force, acting on direct instruction from Labour Party politicians including Arood Shah, launched Operation Hexagon, a coordinated attempt to silence and imprison the very whistleblowers who sought to expose these crimes? Will you investigate the specific roles that Angela Rayner, Deputy Prime Minister, Andy Burnham, Greater Manchester Mayor, Jim McMahon, Government Minister, and Debbie Abrams, Chair of a Government Select Committee, played in this cover-up? Is that alright for names, people? How do you propose to handle the fact that Oldham's council leader openly associates with a convicted heroin dealer who served as a getaway driver for a cop killer? What about the new chief executive who was part of the very communications team involved in covering up the gang rape of children? Will you acknowledge how fears of cultural insensitivity paralysed authorities? Will you recognise that survivors required the support of experienced campaigners and whistleblowers to navigate systems designed to silence them? If you cannot commit to these fundamental principles of justice, your reputation will join those of the powerful figures we have already exposed. Make no mistake, Mr. Crowther, our campaign has destroyed the careers of politicians, police chiefs and public officials who chose institutional protection over truth. Those who underestimated our resolve have seen their public standing irreparably damaged. You stand exposed at this crossroads. Either refuse the sham inquiry and stand with truth, or proceed and be permanently associated with one of Britain's most shameful institutional cover-ups. The former path offers integrity. The latter guarantees your professional legacy will be defined by complicity in injustice. The survivors deserve better, the public deserve better, and you, Mr. Crowther, should know better. Yours sincerely. No, mate, not just me. All of us. We are a politically educated, politically mobilised campaign, now not just belonging to a town, but nationwide with international support. Whatever they got away with in Telford, they will not get away with here. Thank you. Not a single person will publish my letter. I'll publish it. What I ask you to do is copy and paste it, and you use it. Publish it, pin it on your X profiles, post it on your Facebook pages, and ask others to do the same. All of my work is free. I work for you. I put that letter together after I read his 297, I think, or 217 page part 1 of his report. I went back and read all 200 plus pages of it. There's an article that will come out that will highlight some of the key themes, but I will go through that with you now as well. No one's got this letter yet. I wanted to share it with you first. Because when I share it, I want you to share it. So, the story they tell us is the Telford inquiry is like the best of its kind, yeah? It's like Malcolm Newsome and Ridgway. They were expert investigators. If you went further back, there was another guy, I forget his name, he ran away, never came. He was renowned. He was so renowned, he did a runner. So, I've read it and I've got something. I'll tidying it up because I want to get the article out. And it's shared on Redwall and the Rabble. You'll get it in your inboxes. I'm hoping for Tuesday. But I want to give you some headlines. First of all, for decades, the systematic grooming and sexual exploitation of children in Telford was allowed to continue whilst authorities turned a blind eye. You need to understand that. He didn't go into Telford as a saviour. The council was forced to call for an inquiry in the same way they were forced in Oldham. Public outrage grew as brave survivors and investigative journalists exposed the scale of the abuse and the failures of those in power. Even the Daily Mirror ran with an article. The Daily Mirror, the Labour Party supporting Daily Mirror. Facing mounting pressure, the local council reluctantly agreed to an independent inquiry and appointed Tom Crowther, QC at the time, now KC, to lead the investigation. There was a glimmer of hope justice would finally be served, that those responsible would be exposed, held accountable, and meaningful reforms would follow. Instead, the Telford inquiry has proven to be nothing more than a continuation of the cover-up shielding those responsible whilst offering empty platitudes about lessons learned. Not a single public official was held accountable, perpetrators were not named, and the report ignored fundamental issues such as the role of political correctness, race is what I mean, in preventing earlier action. Worse still, those in power have not only escaped consequences, but in some cases have been rewarded with political promotion. The pattern of evasion is not unique to Telford. It follows the same blueprint seen in Rotherham, Rochdale, Oldham and other towns where institutional failures allowed thousands of children to be exploited while authorities looked the other way. If the purpose of an inquiry is to expose the full truth and ensure justice, then the Telford inquiry has utterly failed. Instead of a transparent and rigorous investigation, it has become yet another tool for damage control, one designed to protect institutions, limit reputational harm, and pacify public anger without enacting real change. The following sections, and I've got loads of sections, not loads, give you an insight into that. And that report is coming. But, I'll run through it. A failure to hold officials accountable. One of the most damning aspects of the Telford inquiry is its complete failure to hold any public officials accountable, despite overwhelming evidence of negligence, indifference and outright complicity. No council leaders, social workers or senior police officers have ever faced consequences. Even when clear failures were identified, they were treated as institutional missteps rather than individual misconduct, ensuring that no one bore personal responsibility for the suffering of 1,000 girls, if not more. The inquiry protected perpetrators. That's right, it protected perpetrators, not victims. Despite revealing that more than 1,000 children were exploited in Telford over several decades, the inquiry did not publicly name known perpetrators. This was a deliberate choice, one that prioritised the protection of criminals over justice for victims. The refusal to name perpetrators is an insult to survivors. It reinforces the idea that protecting institutional reputations is more important than delivering justice to those who were abused. In other high-profile cases, names have been released and legal action taken. Rochdale being one. You all know who Shabir Ahmed is. Contrary to what is claimed, many survivors were ignored and their testimonies whitewashed. The inquiries fail to amplify survivor voices. It's part of a broader effort to downplay the severity of what happened. The report, and I found it, there's a quote, survivors' voices were often overlooked in the decision-making processes of the authorities. So he acknowledges the authorities did not listen to survivors. However, rather than seeking justice for these victims, the inquiry merely acknowledged their suffering without proposing concrete measures to address past failures. Oh, we're sorry. We're sorry. Thank you, Jane. Thank you, Roy. I'm sure that'll be translated, changed to UK. So thank you very, very much. And thank you as always, Denise. Yes, they have been using the skips. I released that on Friday, I think. The role of political correctness remains unaddressed. And people say political correctness, but what we mean by that is race. One of the glaring omissions of the Telford inquiry is a failure to address how racism contributed to the long-term cover-up of child sexual exploitation. Sidestepping this issue, the Telford inquiry mirrors the institutional cowardice that enabled abuse to continue for decades elsewhere. Authorities in Telford, just like in other towns, knew about the abuse but did nothing because addressing the perpetrator's background was politically inconvenient. And of course, the report was designed to close the book, not open it. The fundamental purpose of an inquiry should be to reveal the truth, hold those responsible to account, and ensure systemic change to prevent future failures. However, the Telford inquiry appears to have been designed not as a means of exposing the full extent of the scandal, but rather as a way to draw a line under it, giving the illusion of justice while ensuring no real consequence. This is an art. What Crowther is involved in is an art. It's a dark art, but it's an art. And of course, has a consequence. The cover-up continues beyond Telford. The failures of the Telford inquiry are not isolated. They are part of a nationwide pattern of institutional cowardice, bureaucratic self-preservation, and political obfuscation. The same reluctance to act, the same refusal to hold individuals accountable, and the same deflection of responsibility have been seen in towns and cities across the United Kingdom. Instead of marking a turning point, the Telford inquiry serves as yet another example of how the system protects itself rather than the vulnerable children it was meant to safeguard. If these inquiries, these new ones, that Crowther, who comes from that tradition, repeat Telford's failings, so there's no ambiguity, shielding criminals, protecting officials, and pretending the issue is in the past, they are not inquiries at all. They are another chapter in a nationwide cover-up. The public must not be deceived, and those complicit must be held to account. Jenny, thank you very, very much. I know some of you struggle. There's nothing I do at my end that prevents me taking any contributions. It's however the banking system is set up and what your bank thinks the transactions are. If you're finding value, please do subscribe to Red Wall and the Rabble. There's just under 350 of you with me now, and it would mean a lot if, I don't know, 35 of you perhaps signed up to Red Wall and the Rabble. It would really mean a lot. He won't do that. He's a smart man. You've got to accept he's a smart man. He's a KC. We've never gone up against the KC before. And I'm alright going up against the KC because I'm hoping you're with me. But we've never gone up against a KC before. So let's not underestimate what these people are and how bright they are and how much power they have. How much power they have. Thank you, Robert. Now, I get called a far-right conspiracy theorist. Now, not because I talk about the cover-up of the grooming and gang rape of children. That's accepted. It's not barefaced lies. The cover-up is accepted. I get called a far-right conspiracy theorist because of how I describe why it was allowed to take place. And I'm very clear on my position. The safety and security of working class white girls was exchanged for the guarantee of a block vote from a predominantly postal vote secured Pakistani Muslim community. I'm very clear on that position, and I've been from the outset, and people call me far right, call me a racist. So where did I get this from? Well, I live in these communities, I operate in these places, so it's first-hand experience. But then someone says, well, okay, has anyone validated it? Okay. So who needs to validate it? Would someone like, I don't know, let me find a name. Would someone like Alexis J do? She's the one who chaired the ICSA committee, remember? The Rotherham report. The J report, remember? Would someone like Alexis J? She wouldn't do that, would she, Raja? She'd not do that. No. Maybe not the Alexis J now, who is part of the establishment more than ever. And they all go on a journey, don't they? But I want to take you back to the Alexis J of July 2015. Just under 10 years ago. Roger, what are you on about? What are you wittering on about? This is an article in The Guardian. Helen Pidd, I've met Helen Pidd in a past life. She's from Stockport Way, I think, if I remember. I don't think she'd like me now in my current life, but Helen Pidd was like the northwest sort of lead, the northern lead of The Guardian, I remember as. And you can see this is an interview. Alexis J on child sex abuse. Politicians wanting to keep a lid on it. Okay, we know that. But why did they want to keep a lid on it? Her devastating Rotherham report blew open the national debate on child sex abuse. Now the retired social worker is investigating historic claims on an unprecedented scale, taking on Westminster, the BBC and NHS. So now we know in 2015, she saw Westminster, the BBC and NHS as the enemy. Yeah, hiding this. She officially retired 2 years ago. I'll just give you an introduction. Not that you'd notice. In 2013, she stepped down from her role as Scotland's chief social work advisor shortly after being awarded an OBE. But rather than tending to her garden, she ended up digging up horrific claims of CSC in Rotherham. That job done, the scalps of many officials taken, she moved on to sort out Northern Ireland's Safeguarding Children's Board. But last week, the 66-year-old began her biggest task yet when she joined the panel of what has been described as Britain's most complicated and wide-reaching statutory inquiry, and that's the ICSA inquiry. So that's what it's the lead up to. So it's an interview with Alexis J. And I want to go through this and bring you up to a bit that I discovered. And I think you will like it as well. When she wrote the report, this is the Rotherham report, the chapter that gave her the most sleepless nights was about the ethnicity of the perpetrators. Almost all of them were from Rotherham's Pakistani heritage community, which makes up just 3.1% of the local population. So if you just split that in half, that makes it 1.5, doesn't it? 1.6 of men, and that's before you look at children. Yeah. She cringes slightly when I ask her to explain the overrepresentation. It's a very complex issue, and I am not an expert, she begins. I say that she is surely more of an expert than almost anyone else. There's a long pause. I understand that the community in Rotherham were described as coming from possibly 3 villages in Kashmir, and that this identification was very important to them. The traditions and relationships, these were not sophisticated. They were very traditional. I don't even know what that means. I was told by many people that previous generations had a different view about women's place in their culture and their society that certainly wouldn't accord with any sense that we have. So she's calling them misogynists, or previous generations misogynist. Nazir Afzal, Chief Crown Prosecutor for the Northwest and the Crown Prosecution Service, led on CSC exploitation, explained the overrepresentation of Pakistani men in on-street grooming crimes by pointing to the fact they are more likely to work in the nighttime economy in Rotherham. So it's because they were taxi drivers. Alexis J's response to that is, I'm skeptical about that. Good, Alexis. Just because you're a taxi driver doesn't mean you're more likely to rape children. I'm skeptical about that. Not for a principled reason, because I haven't done the research, but from my gut, says Jay. I think it presents an opportunity, but it doesn't present a motive. There are many people involved in the nighttime economy who don't abuse children. Much of the reporting around the Jay report said she had accused Rotherham Council and the police of failing to tackle sexual exploitation because of a misplaced political correctness. Yet Jay quite deliberately never used that term. I have an aversion to phrases like that, she says. Instead, she believes... Cha-ching! Instead, she believes the Labour-dominated council turned a blind eye to the problem because of, quote, their desire to accommodate a community that would be expected to vote Labour, to not rock the boat, to keep a lid on it, to hope it would go away. There you go. Their desire to accommodate a community that would be expected to vote Labour. To not rock the boat, to keep a lid on it, to hope it would go away. There is Alexis Jay, who is now, I would say, the most senior professional in this field of work, confirming my position about protecting the block vote. In essence, exchanging children for power. Anyone got anything to say now? I think not. If you're finding value in this transmission, please do like, at the very least like, share the content, and if you can, take out a subscription. If you haven't already, take out a subscription on Redwall and therabble.co.uk. That is what allows me to continue to do the work, and that is what allows me to go through the evidence, which is more often than not in public. Why, you know, it's hidden in plain sight, as they would say. And here is Alexis Jay, the chair of ICSA, the most senior public official in this field of work, as far back as 2015, confirming that the cover-up of the grooming and gang rape of working class white girls was not about these men being involved in being taxi drivers, overrepresented it in the nighttime economy, but rather about the block vote that community offered and the need to protect that block vote. And that, my friends, is published in The Guardian. Please do watch back. Thank you. And you've got that, haven't you? Are they from the same three villages? JJ. Are the Kashmiris in Oldham from the same three villages? Are the Kashmiris in Rochdale from the same three villages? Kirklees Yeah? You see? How many Labour Party politicians are from those same 3 villages? How many Labour Party MPs are from the same 3 villages? How many Pakistanis who are employed in the Home Office are from the same 3 villages? Thank you, Agnes. Does Debbie Abrahams go to those villages? I know, Denise. Yeah. I know. I want to show you something. Fast forward to 2018. Alexis J. This is how they all change. So they kind of talk the truth earlier on. And then later they change. This is the 20th of January 2018. Alexis J. I've never needed therapy. I did get angry in Rotherham though. So in 2016 she became the 4th chair in 2 years of the troubled inquiry. So they went through 4 chairs. Mira Puri, yeah. Well, I don't know, mate. I mean, you put it up there, and I'm shrugging my shoulders, aren't I? Yeah. But surely we need to be asking these questions. What were the names of the 3 villages? And is there a correlation with these 3 villages and all the other places? So this is Alexis J. Independent inquiry into child sex abuse. ICSA is what the acronym is. J specialised in investigating child sexual abuse throughout her career in Scotland. She became a household name in 2014 when a devastating report into child sex grooming in Rotherham revealed at least 1,400 victims. Some included the town's Labour MP. Sarah Champion argued that the same anxiety about looking racist that deterred Rotherham's authorities from taking action is preventing us from acknowledging that grooming rings of the type exposed in Rotherham and Rochdale are a specifically Muslim Pakistani problem. Are they? So that's the question that they're asking Jay now, 3 years later. Remember, she talked about 3 villages. Let me always be clear and differentiate between child sexual exploitation and child sexual abuse. Because as I'm sure you're aware, if you looked at the profile of child sexual abusers in the main, it's white men acting alone in the home. They are the greatest number of perpetrators. The point about child sexual exploitation is that there's an overrepresentation of certain minority ethnic groups compared to numbers in the general population. So straight away, she's differentiating and she's confirming. She's confirming. This is the ICSA chair confirming the point about child sexual exploitation is that there's an overrepresentation of certain minority ethnic groups compared to numbers in the general population. Does that make her racist and far right? Does that make her racist and far right? She said it, not me. I ask for her view on the theory that Pakistani Muslim men's involvement in Rotherham's grooming ring can be explained by their overrepresentation in the nighttime economy as taxi drivers and takeaway restaurant workers. It's an old thing, and she said no, hasn't she? Yes, I've heard that theory often, but it is conjecture. I don't know where the data is that substantiates it. Certainly in Rotherham there were a very high number of registered taxi drivers, and it may be that people were looking for an alternative source of income in a place where there was a higher than average unemployment. But I would never criminalise any group of people who work in whatever fashion. So she's disputing that again. A taxi driver does not make you a child abuser. My friends, many of my friends are taxi drivers. My brother-in-law is a taxi driver. He drives an Uber. I would have no reservations about leaving my daughter with him, apart from perhaps him feeding her too much sugar. But that's a side issue. Jay's an expert. Sorry, there's too much going on my YouTube. Too many people watching, so it crashes every time. My something on my screen so I can keep it up to date. That's because there's over 400 of you. Jay is an expert in the art of diffusing potentially incendiary themes. Does she share the views of Champion and others that at the root of the problem are a minority of Pakistani Muslim men's cultural attitudes towards white girls? So I think that answers your question there. You know, there are people who go to the hadiths and the religion. My experience of this is it's not religious motivation. It's cultural, underpinned by racism. So, does she share the view of Champion and others that at the root of the problem are a minority of Pakistani Muslim men's cultural attitudes towards white girls? My view was and is, if ethnicity is an element of the criminality of child sex exploitation, it has to be faced, it has to be addressed. We need to know and understand far more about this than we currently do. The big issue here is tackling the problem of demand, and that demand for sex with children is growing worldwide. Why does she think it's growing? I don't understand it at this stage. So she's backtracked. Do you see? My view was and is, if ethnicity is an element of the criminality of child sexual exploitation, it has to be faced. So she's backtracked in 3 years. It's not, before she was very clear, now she's backtracking. I have always maintained that these are racially motivated crimes. And as with all racially motivated crimes like this, horrific, they will also try and find other beliefs to legitimize what they've done. And it's always good for men who rape children to go to God and legitimize it that way. Now, I'm not an expert on the hadith, so I'm not the person to ask. I say this to everyone. It's not an opt-out. I'm not an expert. But my experience is that without a doubt whatsoever, these are racially motivated crimes. And they cover up, because there's elements to this. These are racially motivated crimes. And the reason they were covered up in the way they were, and these men were allowed to get away with it for as long as they did, and so many children were groomed and gang raped for as long as they were, was because of politics and power. And Alexa J has confirmed that herself in an interview to Helen Pidd in The Guardian in 2015. Sorry. Developing a cold, but there you go. That's it. We're there. We are there. So we now know that our viewpoint is not far right, extreme, racist, anything like that. It is based upon the views and opinions shared by the most senior public official with expertise in this area, the chair of ICSA, who also chaired the Rotherham report. We now know that. We also now know that Tom Crowther is coming to facilitate a cover-up in Oldham. And we now know we will be there to stand against him and maintain our position as to what is going on. And these are racist crimes involving powerful politicians who should face criminal charges. Can we win? Well, the battle is in Oldham. You can see this now. Wherever you are in the country, wherever you are in the world, the battle here, it's not a war, but this battle that will define what takes place is taking place in Oldham. We have forced it here, onto our terrain, on our terms, against our people. The greatest chance we have of success is here. Not just because of myself, but because I have educated an entire town over the last 6 years. And even the ones who despise me and hate me, and there are many, because I will not compromise. It's not because of anything other than that. I will not compromise. These people are not my friends. And I will do what is right and see it through in the right way. So this is a fight on our terms, on our ground, and if we are to win this, we need numbers. I'm not asking you to come to Oldham. I'm not even asking you to financially support me. We need numbers to raise awareness of what is taking place. And I can't do that on my own. That is over to you. There are 3 platforms through which I share my work. YouTube, which is here, has a pitiful 11,000 or so subscribers. Pitiful. Which is why our reach is limited. There's X, where I'm approaching 100,000. It's 82, 83 so far. But our likes and shares are reducing. Someone recently put up a comment, Raja, why do you reshare your content? Because people aren't resharing it enough and new people see it. And on Facebook, I'm embarrassed. People I consider friends don't even follow the page, Recusant 9 page. And then when I look at what translates into subscriptions onto Redwall and Rebel, and I'm not talking about money, where all this evidence is collated in a way where I can present it. Here's some video footage, here's some links to some articles, here's my commentary. All put together with time and patience so you understand it. I'm still not at 3,000 subscribers. I will be very clear to you. Maggie Oliver isn't going to come and save you. Because Maggie Oliver specialises in safeguarding the survivors. Charlie Peters and GB News aren't going to come and save you. Because they won't fight for you. They'll report the news, but they won't fight for you. None of the opposition parties in Oldham are going to save you. And Reform in Oldham definitely aren't going to save you because they're full of shit. And I mean that. They've got absolutely nothing other than some guy who wears a flat cap and race baits on his Facebook page. The only way in which we are going to be able to fight, and we've got the odds against us, is if you support me and I can support you. So, I will share the letter. I'll send it out in the morning before I catch a train to London. I'm at a podcast tomorrow in London. So I'll be catching an early train to London. I'm at a podcast on Thursday as well. So I'm running around and doing everything I can to raise awareness, speaking to whoever I can, wherever I can. All I need you to do is your fair share. share the content. Share the letter. Own the letter. Embellish it. Change it if you want. But own the letter. I'll send it out to via Redwall and the Rabble before I fall asleep. The letter. This evening. If you are new to me, please take out a subscription to Redwall and the Rabble. Please like and share the content. Follow us on social media. X, YouTube, and of course Facebook. Thank you, Jane. Did you watch the interview with Mike? Now, the thing with Mike is he's from the left. I'm going and educating, engaging with people who are of across the political spectrum. Tomorrow I'm going and seeing, I'll bring it up, Peter McCormack, if any of you know him. He has about 500,000 people more who follow him on X. On Thursday I'm with UK Column. And I've got to finish this article and send it out to you as well. And of course on Wednesday we've got our we've got our new Wednesday slot. Post Prime Minister's questions. But we're doing all right. We've just pulled out information that validates our position, unless they want to call Alexis J a far-right racist conspiracy theorist. And we know Tom Crowther for what he is, for who he is, and what his real role is. And we will fight them. If you find value, please like, please subscribe. I'll tell you right now if we manage to hit the last 3 before we go. No. Not a single one. So, all that time, not a single subscriber of the 3 we needed. Oh well. A very good evening.